It is the Audible. We're not talking about second-year players. That's more surface level. Let's deep dive in this and talk about second-year offenses, Sigmund. And before we jump into the teams, we have 7 teams to highlight here. Before we jump into this, why is it second-year
Right.
offense that fantasy GMs need to be focused on?
Yeah, and this is me self-scouting, right? I love new shiny things. I often spend a lot of time in our preseason shows, off-season shows, talking about offenses that have new offensive coordinators and why that matters. Back on the 4th of July when we talked about the Chargers and Baltimore, we talked about not just a new offensive coordinator, but relieving the burden of the old offensive coordinator. So that's exciting. That's discreet and easy to point out the change, right? At taking away a negative, maybe even adding a positive. But when we get to the second year of an offense, everybody's fluent. The personnel matches more the priorities and roles that the offensive coordinator has, the culture of the team. And you can start stacking on concepts. The quarterback, maybe most importantly, the quarterback is ready and understands the concepts and why the play is designed that way, how the concept turns into production. So this is really exciting, especially when we have these offenses from the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay tree that are maybe a little bit complicated, but once you get it, that's when the possibilities get unlocked.
It's language, baby. So we will start in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. There's a Shanny disciple right there. And why it actually could maybe take a step back. Kirk Cousins maybe level off. I think record-wise, they're not gonna win 11 one-score games or whatever,
Right.
Bloom. But from a fantasy perspective, what are you anticipating in the second year for Minnesota?
Yeah, and you're right to say, hey, we should be skeptical about the win total, but the production could still improve. I think in part because, again, just the offense runs better. Okay. A lot of different advanced metrics show that Dalvin Cook wasn't adding a lot to this offense. All right. He was also playing hurt last year. So Alexander Madison also maybe unlocking parts of the running game with speedier running backs, quicker running backs in Nwangwu and Chandler. That could help the efficiency. What I'm most excited about here is a full season, full off season, a full season of TJ Hawkinson and the upgrade from Adam Thielen in the autumn, winter of his career to Jordan Addison. And it's New Year's, baby. It's springtime. It's rebirth. And Jordan Addison is one of those players that was drafted to do the stuff he's good at. Don't watch the USC tape, watch the Pitt tape. That's the receiver. So Jordan Addison could be a big hit. We know that Justin Jefferson still has levels left to unlock. So all these things, they play indoors. That's great. More than half of their games are played indoors. So I think that there's a lot of reasons for optimism here about the offense, even if we know the Lions are the favorite in this division.
Another Shanny disciple. I like how you sneak the lines in there. Another Shanny disciple. We'll get to them in a little bit. But
Yeah.
let's talk about Miami and Mike
Yeah.
McDaniel, who I love, and what they will look like in year 2.
And also, I just want to mention this about O'Connell as a capper. He's a Shandy disciple and a McVay disciple, right? I mean,
Well,
he's
McVay
learned.
was a Shandy disciple. McVay
Yeah,
learned
it's
under
all
Mike Shanahan in
incestuous. Yeah,
Washington.
no, you're
Yeah.
right. You're right.
It all goes back to Mike, baby.
It
It's
all
all
goes
Mike.
back to Mike. It all goes back to Mike. Another Mike McDaniel, and Cecil, you chronicled this for years on the show. I'm glad I'm here to hear this stuff so I can tell people. No, Cecil Lammey was saying that a long time ago. Uh, Mike McDaniel was maybe as much of the genius in San Francisco as Kyle
Mhm.
Shanahan, right?
Yep.
And we saw that
Yep.
last year. I think that there's already been talk that Tyreek Hill, potential legal matters aside, never know with Tyreek Hill, uh, he could be better in his second year in this offense. Okay, Jalen Waddle, even just not having Mike Gesicki out there. Okay, I mean, why? Blah. I don't understand, but you're going to have personnel out there that I think is more responsive to what they want to do. But I'm most excited about Devin A. Chain and the vast tracts of land in the middle of defenses when they face Miami and Devin A. Chain, and I know that Dalvin Cook could end up there, and that's fine. I actually don't think at this point Dalvin Cook is that much better than a healthy Raheem Mostert. Well, how much do we get of a healthy Raheem Mostert? Now you have A. Chain, who gives you the explosive breakaway chunk play possibilities not just in the running game, but as a receiver. And that's the early word, is stressing him as a receiver out of the backfield. So if you have defenses that are already playing on their heels, they're already playing keep it in front of you defense because you have to count for Hill and Waddle. And now you add another explosive player who can run, the little Texas route and whatnot underneath, and just have to make the first guy miss and look out, right? The other thing we want to add here too is number one, Tua Tagovailoa. What happens if he can stay healthy? That could boost this entire offense in year two, in addition to being more fluent in the Mike McDaniel concepts. But say what you will about Mike White, he ain't shy throwing the football. So if Tua can't stay healthy, I think that you have somebody that might be less efficient than Teddy Bridgewater, but more bold. And you certainly have a better option than Skylar Thompson.
A Chain is their McCaffrey, and if you're excited about Jameer Gibbs, you should be excited about A
Yes.
Chain. Detroit in just a little bit, but let's get through Chicago and we look to the growth of Justin Fields.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I think we have to be open to that. Maybe not quite a Jalen Hurts level leap, but there have been some items that point to growth as a passer. Certainly, his personnel is getting better. The offensive line is actually stable at this point. I think they have a pretty good idea who the starters are gonna be, which you could not say last year. These are all building blocks. And then Luke Getzey, who's still more of an unknown, you have the second year of his program. So I think there's a lot of different ways to split this up for fantasy, whether it's making sure to put a chip on your favorite running back, whether it's making Justin Fields your plan at quarterback, making sure that you get in on DJ Moore with all the scarring and disappointment that 2022 caused among fantasy players. There's a lot of different ways you can play this, but there's a lot of things in Chicago that have an arrow pointing up for this offense. And let's face it, where this passing game was last year, there is no other way to go but up.
Bloom, I'm gonna be like one of the people that opens the rodeo chutes for the Bucking Bulls,
Ah, there we
and I'm
go.
just gonna let you go with the Detroit Lions. So I'm gonna open the gate,
Yeah.
and you give us longer than 8 seconds, baby, as always. But
Yeah.
go, Detroit.
Well, look, and again, and the to Cease, can I just take a moment to say thank you to all of our loyal listeners and viewers? Because I don't know, I'm 47. I'm going to turn 48 this summer. 50 is right around the corner. Oh my. Oh my. I don't know how often I say things. I don't know who I say things to. I don't know when I'm repeating myself, but I know I'm repeating myself about the Detroit offense, right? I know I'm repeating myself about the Detroit offense, but we're going to emphasize this. We're going to emphasize this because where we're going, we don't need roads, right? I mean, this might be one of those kinds of offenses. And I just ask folks again to think about how off balance defenses were with Jamal Williams, not David Montgomery, with DeAndre Swift, not Jameer Gibbs, with Jameson Williams in the little bit there was Jameson Williams, who was getting free behind defenses at times. Now I know 6 game suspension. He's healthy. Okay. Maybe some more creative wrinkles to how Amon-Ra St. Brown is used. Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, everybody. I mean, how are you going to account for all of these options? And even if you don't like Jared Goff, he's really good at being a quarterback that the offensive coordinator just controls with a joystick. And that's probably all you need in this offense. They're playing indoors on that fast track. We'll see about the defense. I don't know if people run numbers on having a bad defense. I mean, having a bad defense can be bad for fantasy offenses when it means you can't get the ball back. But I think it's the opposite here because the pressure that the Lions offense puts on the opposing offense means that they're going to have to score points to keep up, and trying to grind out drives and kick field goals and things like that. That's not going to work against the Lions. That's the kind of offense we have here. And we have an offense that can create multiple overachievers. First and foremost, Jared Goff.
How excited are you about Calvin Ridley and the Jacksonville offense and also the offseason newswire? And again, subscribe to that footballguys.com free daily newsletter. Takes are written by me, Sigmund Bloom, and Joe Bryant. So, yes, how excited are you about Jacksonville's offense and Calvin Ridley? And
Yeah.
also, oh, yeah, RBBC is coming.
Yeah. And I think that's something where that's where the disappointment comes in, although maybe it could make a path for Travis Etienne to hit if just this whole offense becomes that much more efficient and explosive. Maybe that's sort of the drag, unless you're taking Tank Bigsby, who's still really cheap. So yeah, take Tank Bigsby because I think that you could see him as something very close to the James Robinson role last year. And we saw poor James Robinson, but probably like in decline, at least physically. But you add Calvin Ridley, and see, so when we watch this offense, you got to take our hats off to Trent Baalke, who has been a punchline for taking players with ACL tears and things like that. But you saw a really good combination. How many times do we bemoan the person buying the groceries doesn't know the recipe, right?
Right. All the
But in
time.
this case, all the time. But in this case, you have continuity. Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, these guys were geared for a short and intermediate, get the ball out quickly passing game. And it was very efficient with Trevor Lawrence. But we sometimes said, wow, what could this offense look like with a real downfield threat, an outside X receiver threat? And brilliantly, they trade for Calvin Ridley mid-season when he's at it's like don't tell me it's not like fantasy football. That was a fantasy football trade, right?
Right.
Trent Baalke.
Right.
That was a fantasy. And even with the escalators, well, if Calvin Ridley hits and they sign him to a second contract and all that, well, you're happy to give up those escalators. When you look at what teams have paid in terms of money, what teams have paid in terms of draft picks to get a number one receiver, and what the Jags gave up, that could be a brilliant trade, and it could lead to lots of brilliant moves in fantasy leagues if you count on this offense to take a step forward in overall production and efficiency.
Totally off topic, but I bet Trent Baalke plays fantasy. I know for a fact that Jeff Saturday did before he got his head coaching gig because that week he had to quit his fantasy league because you're a head coach in the NFL, you're not gonna
Right,
play
have
fantasy
time.
football.
Yeah.
Um, but that week he played Brandon Stokely and beat him with like a
Wow.
lineup that he didn't change his lineup because he
Right,
left.
right,
He got the
right.
job to be the head coach, so he played Brandon Stokely, friend of the show. What's up, Stoke? And he beat him. Stoke
See,
was
that's
pissed because he's like, he didn't even set his lineup and he beat him.
right, that's hilarious. You know what? I mean, that's the universe winking at us. That's the football gods winking
Uh-huh.
at us. How can
Yeah.
Jeff Saturday be a better coach? Just don't do anything. Just step back. Stay away. Don't touch it.
I think that's a perfect segue into the Las Vegas Raiders
Yeah,
as we talk about second year offenses. Bloom, you're on one today.
yeah,
Let's talk about the Raiders and why it's like kindergarten. One of these things does not look like the other.
yeah.
Oh, we're excited about all these teams. And then there's the Raiders.
Yeah, and maybe this is also, if you decode it, another version of the "you're a donkey if you take Josh Jacobs. Oh, by the way, you won your league if you take Josh Jacobs." So on its face, with Jimmy Garoppolo and the potential with this foot issue and the very low floor of this offense, it sure seems like one that we're not forecasting over. Davante Adams isn't very happy and so on. But we did see at the end of the year when Jared Stidham was put in, who is familiar with all the McDaniels terminology and McDaniels way of thinking, this offense came alive. I was frankly shocked they didn't bring back Jared Stidham, but that's because they had the plan of bringing in Brian Hoyer and drafting Aiden O'Connell. So, I mean, we never associate Brian Hoyer with a fantasy success. We have associated Jimmy Garoppolo with fantasy success. It sure does sound like Jimmy Garoppolo is maybe taking a little more focused approach to being on the field for this team. So if Garoppolo can stay healthy, maybe this offense could overperform just because of that glimpse we got with Jared Stidham, even though we're looking at the downside, which I think is the right way to look at it now. But hey, come August, if Garoppolo is taking all the first team reps and looking good, and everyone's saying Jacoby Myers is there, we have somebody that really helps the running game and the passing game and the familiarity again with Josh McDaniels. Yeah, maybe there could be something there.
Yeah, what about something in New York City with the Giants and Brian Dable, who I love? Don't know Brian like I know Mike McDaniel or whatever, but like just knowing many people around the Bills organization and the history and the stories of Dable and what he's done. Look at what he did with Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
But as we've talked about with wide receivers conversations we had on this show, it's like you're gonna have, Wandale Robinson, Sterling Shepard on pup to begin the
right.
season. So you're going to have different iterations of this offense. Okay. We're left to wonder what year 2 looks like because year 1 was so good, especially with
Yeah.
a quarterback that people thought, okay, one more year, Daniel Jones, then Brian Dable will be able to get his guy. Well, maybe he has his guy.
Maybe he does. And even at wide receiver, right? Last
Yeah.
year, do you do you remember? Cease, really, has there been anybody that had a steeper drop off than Kenny Galladay? You know, at least he got paid.
Right.
He was on the team. I know that we're all blocking that
He
memory
was.
out, right? We're
Right.
repressing that memory because it's traumatic. But Darius Slayton wasn't the plan, and they re-upped Darius Slayton. Isaiah Hodgins wasn't the plan. He was on the Bills roster. Okay. Paris Campbell wasn't the plan. Paris Campbell was on the Colts roster. There's a lot of good early buzz about Paris Campbell, including using him as a running back or otherwise doing some of
Hmm.
the things that they were doing with Wandale Robinson, who was very productive as a rookie when he got on the field. So Rondale Robinson, Wandale being hurt could open the door for Paris Campbell. We already know that Slayton can be productive here. We already know that Hodgins can be productive here. Richie James. I didn't mention Richie James in Kansas City when we did our wide receiver battle episode. I got to mention Richie James, right? Um, so, we saw Richie James have fantasy relevance, and that's year one under Brian Dable. Now all the concepts start to gel. This offensive line is young and getting better. Evan Neal, also a second year player. Andrew Thomas is emerging as a stud tackle in the NFL. You certainly have. Oh, did I mention Darren Waller? Now, the vibes coming out of the Giants on Darren Waller is like, we're going to keep him in bubble wrap, which is like sus to say the least. That's what the kids say now. I've heard that you're like, we got this brand new guy. It's going to change our offense. We really don't want to ask him to do very much because we're afraid that he might not stay healthy. But still, in so much as he's going to be on the field, which he'll be on the field some, I hope. I don't want to bloom him. He's going to elevate this offense. And again, I think with Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones strikes me as the kind of guy that when he's not going to be someone who just rests on his laurels now that he has some generational security. He strikes me as a guy that's going to want to prove that he's worth it and rededicate himself more. All the things we said about Daniel Jones that aren't very flattering. He's a competitor. He's an ultimate competitor for his team. I think he's going to put in the time. He's going to put in the energy to get the most out of this offense. And we all have to keep in mind just how much this offense overachieved last year. So if we raise expectations in year two and they overachieve again, what does that look like? It looks like good stuff for your fantasy team.
And that's why I'm glad you bring up Daniel Jones here at the end, because it's like he's not done proving himself.
No.
Like, at all. At all. Last year, the bar was so low because it was like they're going to get rid of Daniel Jones. Oh, wait, he's playing good football. Now the expectations are there. You got to win, and you're in a division with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
So you better look good or else you will be replaced. Brian Dable is not with the Giants to be good. He's there to win championships.
Yeah.
And if Daniel Jones isn't that guy, they'll move on. Jones will feel that pressure this year.
Yeah. And I think that this is a player that, remember, last year, see, so what was his job last year? Just don't lose the game for us. Right.
Right.
Just don't
Don't screw
lose
it
the
up.
game. Don't screw it up. And what did he do? Not just not lose the game. Oftentimes in the fourth quarter, he was leading the drive to win the game. But instead of just scraping and scratching and clawing to get to 17 points or 20 points, a better offense, you may not have to have fourth quarter comebacks. You might have fourth quarter, let's finish this win after having a successful first three quarters.
We are the Audible footballguys.com. Cecil Lammey and Sigmund Bloom. Thank you for helping to grow our YouTube channel. And if you found value in this show, please subscribe to footballguys.com. We get a lot of people asking, I want to support the show. How do I support the show? Well, we're not going to do super chats or anything like that. So go to footballguys.com, sign up for your subscription. That's how you support the Audible. And of course, doing the YouTube things like comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And as I love to quote Den of Nerds, Bloom, smash the
Mhm.
freaking like button. We just appreciate you all here. And here we go as we're nearing the beginning of training camp in late July. That's when preseason watch list will kick off. It's 32 teams, 32 episodes, every skill position player that you need to know about. It is audio only. So you love the YouTube show? There's more Audible for you on your podcast apps, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, however you enjoy your podcast. We have it available for you. It is the Audible. See, there's only one because we've been doing this since 2006. We are the Audible, everybody. Don't get me started on a rant. He's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I am at Cecil Lammey. The show is at The Audible, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, stay tuned and stay frosty.